So if you are using the ambient occlusion textures, you will have to replace some of them during building. This happens when you are using L-connect or T-connect parts that have a valley, and this valley is throwing a shadow that has to be extended to the adjacent parts. We can find the extend textures at the miniatures of the part that is have the valley that's provoking this shadow. So this is an L-connect 4-4. When I click it, we get here the possibilities. We have a single extend and a double extend. So let's first take a look here at the left part. We need a single extend. And if we throw it on there, you see the shadow nicely going to the adjacent part. In case of this the other way around, it will have to be flipped because the shadow will be at the wrong side. So we're going here to the texture tab and doing a horizontal scale flip. And then it's correctly placed. Here we need a double extend because this part is in between two valleys. So it's number 3, the double extend. Like this, the shadows are nicely going over all the parts. In case of the dormers, the regular extend doesn't work because we have the shading of the dormer itself. So we find this on these extend parts on the miniature of the dormers themselves. And here you get all the options, 4-4, 4-3, 4-2, for single and double extends. Here we need a single one, the number 3. It has to be flipped. And in this case, we will need to add some offsets. Flipping the texture, it's because this is a cut-off part of the complete layout. For the white dormers, this is a white one, it's a horizontal offset of 0.601. And for the regular dormers, the narrow ones, these, it's 0.501. And so you get all the textures correctly, all the shading correctly going over the parts. Then there's also a different option for the inside ambient occlusion maps. By default here, if you look at the maps, there's this shadow at the bottom of the face, like there would be a floor or a short wall giving a shadow. But if there is nothing provoking a shadow here, like if the roof would be on a high wall, there are inside open ambient occlusion maps to put in the place of there. Again, we can find them on the miniatures. Here we have the 4 meter inside open. And we get similar texturing, but without this bottom shadow. Here for the L part, we go the L Connect miniature. We have here field base inside open and field cap inside open. If you are confused which part is which face is the base and which one is the cap, you can go look at the miniature, and here you can see this is the base, this is the cap. So first the base, which is here, and then take the cap. Which is here. And now we have our roof completely without this bottom shadow. Now, if you are throwing textures on the roof in Second Life, you will lose the ambient occlusion maps because Second Life only allows for one texture to be applied to a certain face. But you can have both of them, you can combine them in external editor. But I'm going to do a separate video about this on how to combine ambient occlusion maps with Second Life textures to have them both on your models. And I'm also going to talk about the use of UV maps in this upcoming video. This is the last thing that can be found on the miniatures. These are the UV maps of a model. A UV map is a 2D representation of the 3D model faces. You can see exactly where every face is on a 2D layout, where it will be on a texture. This might seem confusing if you're not familiar with this, but let me throw it on the model and you will better understand what I mean. So here we can exactly see where are the borders of the certain faces of this 3D model on the 2D layout, on where that will be the map for your texture. But I'm going to do a separate video about this because this is not specifically roof related. It's more general stuff. So I will do a video soon about the use of ambient occlusion and UV maps. So let's talk about the 45 and 60 degrees round corners. As said, those are more complicated to build with and have some limitations. First of all, they exist of a few different pieces. For the 45 degrees, we have two different ones, 45A and 45B. Those are similar in shape, but have different snap positions. And for the 60 degrees round corner, we have three of these parts, 60 degrees A, B, and C. So for the 45, these parts will only be rotated by 90 degrees, never by 45 degrees, unless for a little trick we are going to use. But in the final build, they will always be at 90 degrees, 90, 180, 270, those round numbers. Because if we snap them together, they form a 90 degrees round corner, and by copying them and rotate 90 degrees, we get the other options that we might need in our build. If we need other directions, those two parts will always give us the options we need. Here with the 60 degrees, similar. If we snap those together, we get a 180 degrees round corner. So for the other directions we might need in our build, we just have to rotate these parts 180 degrees, and we have all the options we need. If you res them, I've done it so that if you res them out, you get two options. You get a link set with the two parts here for 45 to use. But if you want, you can also use this full circle, unlink it, and shift copy parts from there, and then you never have to rotate them. Then you always have the parts pre-rotated. And similar for the 60 degrees corner, you get a link set with the three parts, ABC, and a full circle with ABC and then ABC pre-rotated. So you can use the one that suits you best. So how are we going to build with these parts? We're going to have a straight section, and first we're going to use this 45 degrees A part, and this snaps against this straight section. And the other part, the B part, will snap against this direction, 90 degrees rotated. And in between those two, we will have a section with 45 degrees parts. Now, building on 45 degrees is very difficult because you can't use snap to grid nor the align tool. So it's best to build this section straight. Just have a straight part and make here your section that you want to use in between those two corners. And then how are we going to rotate it and bring it in place? Well, first we're going to temporarily rotate this part by 45 degrees. Those parts, they rotate on their y-axis, so we're going to distract here 45 degrees, which gives us 315. And now this part is aligned the other way. And we're going to use the align tool to align the two parts. And we have to align in the direction of the tip, because by rotating it, the bounding box has been rotated as well, and the align tool uses the edges of this box, so we need to use the direction of the tip to align the two parts, like this. We cannot push align, because it will hit against the bounding box, so we have to do this alignment manually. So we're going to bring it in place manually. Like that. If you need to fine-tune this, please take a look at the methods described in the assembling parts video. Then we are going to link our straight section to the corner, link it, and bring the corner back at 0 degrees. Important is to have edit axis at root here for this to work, and then we can snap this part as a whole against our straight section. Now for this side, there will be a gap. There will always be a small gap. So we're going to position it the closest possible, well aligned with the diagonal part. And then we have to stretch this straight part to close the section. So the limitation we have here is that we will always need a part that we can stretch a bit to close the gap that we have here. This is the 45 section build. Now take a look at the case with the 60 degrees. So the A part from the 60 degrees, it snaps in this direction. And the C part, 180 degrees rotated, is going to snap here, like that. And then the B part will be in between, somewhere in our building construction. So we'll have parts rotated on 60 degrees between those two, and then 120 degrees between those two. So we make our section again. We build it straight. We're going to build it straight, and we're going to use the same trick here by temporarily rotate this part, this time by 60 degrees. Going to distract 60 here, gives us 300, align, and then manually bring it in place, like this. Link, bring back at 0, and our first section can be snapped against the straight part. Voila. Then for the other side, we're going to do the same trick here. Say this is our section we have built. Here we have to rotate the other direction, so we're going to add 60 degrees for the alignment, and then the same procedure. Link, back at 0, and it can be snapped against this part. Now for the in-between, this B part, we will have again a gap on both sides. So we have to place it near our build section where it's aligned, like this. And then we'll have to close the gap. The other side here we can also bring in place by snapping it like that. And then edit linked, close this section, and close that section. And snap that one. And here we have an example of 60 degrees rotated sections. Okay, this is about it. I hope this was helpful. Have fun building and see you in Second Life.